Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm really glad you were joining us for this one because the source material you've provided for this session is, well, it's entirely unique.
Yeah, it really is a stark departure for us.
Usually we sit down at this table with, a massive stack of literature. We might be looking at a 300-page sociological study
Just a
or
thick binder of economic data.
right, exactly. Or some dense collection of historical analyses. And we spend our time just sifting through all that volume to extract the core insights. But today, the source you've handed us isn't a manuscript.
No, not at all.
It's not a research paper. It is a single, highly evocative fragment of text. It just consists of a title and an author.
Which is fascinating because when you only have a few words to work with, your whole analytical methodology has to shift.
You can't just skim for a thesis statement.
Right, or skip to the conclusion. You really have to interrogate the text on a structural and philosophical level. You have to treat every single concept introduced as like a foundational pillar for a much larger argument.
So let me just lay out the factual material we're working with today. The entirety of our source is a specific phrase translated from its original language. The text reads, Dimensional Reduction Upgrade of Human Civilization.
And the author.
Right, and the author's name translates to Xu Feng. That's the full extent of the source. 8 words in English.
And yet those 8 words present this remarkably dense conceptual framework. It's a prime example of how extreme brevity it can actually force a more rigorous intellectual engagement than a sprawling 1,000-page text would.
Yeah, absolutely. So our mission for this deep dive is to dissect the profound linguistic and philosophical weight packed into this phrase. We really need to break down the inherent tension in the concepts being presented here.
Because there is a lot of tension there.
Tons. And we want to explore what this framework means for your own understanding of progress, both on a macro societal scale and a micro individual one.
Right, because if we take this proposal seriously, it fundamentally challenges the dominant models of how we define advancement.
It really does.
The ideas embedded here push back against all our default assumptions regarding evolution and progress. I mean, we operate within a paradigm that views advancement as a strictly additive process, like it's linear. But this text asks us to reconsider the systemic architecture of how a civilization actually moves forward.
Okay, let's unpack this, because you really need to start with the first half of the title. There is this immediate, just glaring contradiction built right into the phrasing.
Yes, the juxtaposition.
We have dimensional reduction paired directly with the word upgrade. And from a conventional standpoint, these two concepts are completely at odds.
Totally.
I mean, think about it in terms of data science or machine learning, for instance. Dimensional reduction is a very specific process, like principal component analysis.
Right, PCA.
Exactly. If you have a massive data set with hundreds of variables or dimensions, it's often just too noisy to be useful.
Is pure noise.
So you perform a dimensional reduction to flatten that data space down to the 3 or 4 variables that actually drive the variance. You are intentionally stripping away data. You're losing complexity.
And that is a perfect analytical lens for this. Because in mathematics, physics, systems engineering, reducing dimensions is about restriction. You're deliberately narrowing the field of play.
Right.
But then we look at the word appended to it, upgrade. And an upgrade carries the exact opposite implication in our modern culture.
It means more.
Exactly. An upgrade is expansion. It's gaining processing power, adding features, increasing capacity. We view upgrades purely through the lens of accumulation.
So the text is forcing 2 opposing vectors together. The act of stripping away and the act of elevating.
Right.
Think about it like a smartphone. If your phone is running incredibly slow because you have 100 apps running in the background, all these overlapping dimensions of activity.
Draining the battery.
Right, completely draining the battery, pinning you with notifications. You go in and you delete 50 apps, you turn off the background refresh, you've performed a dimensional reduction.
You stripped away complexity.
Yes, but the result isn't a degraded phone. The result is a massive upgrade to the phone's speed, its battery life, your own focus.
What's fascinating here is how that synthesis works. True advancement doesn't always mean accumulating more. This concept highlights the insight that the ultimate form of evolution might actually require stepping out of an overly complex, tangled dimension and simplifying to a more fundamental, clearer state of existence.
But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Isn't dimensional reduction inherently a loss of capability? I mean, if we're talking about human progress, complexity is what gives us the rich tapestry of our world.
That's the standard argument, yes.
A highly dimensional society is what gives us niche scientific research, complex global supply chains, nuanced art, specialized medicine. If we subject a system to a dimensional reduction, don't we risk losing the very diversity and capability that the complexity affords us? How does the text reconcile that massive loss with the word upgrade?
Well, that assumes all complexity is functional.
Okay, explain that.
From a systems theory perspective, there's a really critical distinction between functional complexity and institutional entropy.
Institutional entropy.
Right. When a system first develops, adding layers or dimensions solves problems. You build a regulatory agency to handle a new industry. You add a new layer of code to a software program to introduce a new feature.
That's functional.
Exactly. But over time, systems experience diminishing returns on complexity. You reach a point of what engineers call technical debt.
Yeah.
New layers aren't adding capability anymore. They're just managing the friction created by the previous layers.
Oh, wow. So you end up with legacy systems. Think about the global banking infrastructure. Modern digital apps on your phone are essentially just a shiny user interface built on top of 50-year-old mainframe code that, honestly, no single engineer fully understands anymore.
And as a house of cards.
So adding another layer of code to that system isn't an upgrade, it's a liability.
Exactly. In that state of technical debt, an upgrade cannot be additive. The system is too fragile. The only path to a genuine upgrade is refactoring the base code.
You have to undergo a dimensional reduction.
Yes. Stripping away the tangled, inefficient legacy architecture to build something simpler, more elegant, and highly efficient. The reduction isn't a loss of capability. It is a shedding of entropy.
So you aren't losing the specialized medicine or the nuanced art.
No, not at all.
Right.
You're stripping away the administrative bloat and the systemic friction that makes those things so difficult to sustain in the first place. The reduction is the necessary prerequisite for the upgrade.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the author isn't just applying this concept to software architecture or data models. They are projecting this onto the largest possible canvas.
The macro scale.
Right. The second half of the phrase is human civilization. We are talking about the collective operating system of the entire human species.
It's a massive claim.
How does a global society, characterized by billions of overlapping interactions, competing ideologies, massive resource demands, actually execute a dimensional reduction upgrade?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to honestly evaluate the current architectural state of modern civilization. And we are arguably at the peak of institutional entropy.
You think we're at the peak?
I do. Our era is defined by extreme, almost paralyzing hyperdimensionality. Just consider our financial markets. We've moved from trading physical goods to trading currency to trading algorithmic derivatives of bundled debt.
Debt that operates in a mathematical space completely detached from actual human labor or material reality?
Exactly. We have built bureaucracies to oversee bureaucracies.
And look at our information ecosystem. We're suffering from the curse of dimensionality in a very real sociological sense.
Explain how you mean that.
Well, back to data science. When a model has too many dimensions, the space becomes so vast that all data points seem equidistant. The algorithm literally can't distinguish a clear pattern. It just sees noise.
Ah, right.
Culturally, we're experiencing the exact same phenomenon. Billions of data points, opinions, microevents are broadcast globally every single second. Everything feels equally urgent.
Which means nothing is actually prioritized.
Exactly. We have maximized the dimensions of our communication, but the societal user experience has degraded into constant reactive anxiety.
That is the core vulnerability of our current trajectory. And our default civilizational impulse is to try and solve this problem by adding yet another dimension.
Right. We think we need a new overarching global tech platform to manage the fallout of the current tech platforms.
Or a more complex legislative framework to rein in a bloated legislative system. We just keep trying to untie the Gordian knot by adding more strength.
But applying this text's framework, an upgrade for human civilization doesn't look like a sprawling, chaotic cyberpunk megacity where everything is hyper-connected through 1,000 new technical layers.
No, it looks like the exact opposite. It looks like a deliberate structural simplification.
It demands a total paradigm shift in how we value progress.
A dimensional reduction upgrade for humanity would require establishing a new set of societal axes that actively filter out the noise. It would mean transitioning our global infrastructure away from extractive, infinitely compounding growth models.
Towards steady-state, highly efficient systems.
Exactly. It implies a society that has mastered its technology so thoroughly that the technology actually becomes invisible. It recedes into the background to support fundamental human well-being rather than demanding constant hyperdimensional engagement from us.
So let me push back on the feasibility of that. Refactoring the base code of a bank is difficult enough. Refactoring human civilization implies a massive, potentially destabilizing disruption. I mean, people's livelihoods, their identities, our entire global economy are woven into those layers of complexity. You can't just delete dimensions of society without severe friction.
And that is the profound challenge presented by the phrase. It does not imply that the reduction will be seamless or painless. In fact, historical analysis of complex societies, like Joseph Tainter's work on civilizational collapse, suggests that societies rarely choose to simplify voluntarily.
They usually hold on to their complexity until the system fractures under its own weight.
Yes. What this text proposes is the conscious, intentional choice to simplify before collapse forces it upon us. It's the realization that voluntary reduction is the only proactive mechanism we have for an actual upgrade.
Let me pause here and ask you, the listener, to run this framework through your own observations. What stands out to you when you look at the architecture of our society today?
It's a great exercise.
Whether it's in your industry, your local governance, or even just the digital platforms you navigate daily, what systems have accumulated so much technical debt and bloat that they are practically begging for a dimensional reduction? Where could we achieve a massive leap in functional capability simply by refactoring the system rather than adding to it?
It's a phenomenal analytical tool for evaluating the world around you. And this brings us to the second element of the source material you provided, the author's name.
Right.
In the English translation, the author is Xu Feng, and the phonetic translation of that name carries a very specific meaning. Xu Feng translates to snow peak.
This is where the source transitions from pure systems theory into something much more evocative.
Beautifully so.
We have this highly technical concept of a dimensional reduction upgrade authored by Snowpeak.
This raises an important question about how the environmental realities of a snow peak serve as a perfect physical manifestation of the concept we have been discussing. Think about the physics of altitude, particularly in the context of astronomy or communications. Why do we put our most powerful observatories on the tops of dormant volcanoes or high mountain peaks?
Well, because of the atmosphere. Down at sea level, you are looking through miles of dense, turbulent air. It completely distorts the light. You have light pollution from cities, water vapor, thermal currents. It is a high-entropy environment.
Exactly. The valley of human civilization is incredibly dense with competing variables. It is culturally, politically, and economically noisy.
The atmosphere is thick with distortion.
Yes, but as you ascend to a snow peak, you are physically leaving those dimensions behind. The air thins, the atmospheric density drops. You are stepping out of the high-entropy environment of the valley.
It's an environmental dimensional reduction.
Precisely.
You lose the vast, tangled complexity of the lower elevations. But the upgrade you achieve is one of signal clarity.
Right.
From that elevated vantage point, the atmospheric distortion is stripped away. You transition from a state of constant reactive noise to a state of high signal intention.
The environment of a snow peak is stark. It's unforgiving, but it is pure. It represents an elevated perspective where the foundational patterns of the landscape finally become visible.
You can see the weather systems forming hundreds of miles away.
You can see the curvature of the earth. You cannot achieve that perspective while standing in the dense canopy of the valley, no matter how many technological tools you bring with you. You have to physically shed the complexity of your surroundings to achieve the clarity of the peak.
That synthesis of author and title provides a really compelling blueprint. A dimensional reduction upgrade is not about destroying the intricate ecosystems of the valley. It is about recognizing that human civilization does not have to remain permanently trapped in its own atmospheric distortion.
It's a call to elevate.
A call to elevate our societal architecture above the technical debt we've accumulated. We can choose to refactor. We can choose to ascend to a clearer vantage point, knowing that what we shed in the process is not a loss of our humanity, but rather the removal of the very friction that is holding us back.
It challenges us to mature past our obsession with accumulation. The text asks if we are capable of recognizing that true systemic elegance, true advancement, is often defined by what is deliberately left out, rather than what is endlessly added.
So what does this all mean? We started with a single, highly concentrated source, the phrase dimensional reduction upgrade of human civilization by Xu Feng.
Just those few words.
And by running that brief text through the lenses of systems theory, data architecture, and sociological entropy, we have uncovered a radical alternative framework for progress.
A completely different way to look at the future.
We've seen that advancement is not strictly a linear path of adding more layers, more technology, or more complexity. In systems burdened by technical debt, the ultimate mechanism for evolution is the profound courage to subtract.
Absolutely.
It is about identifying the tangled, overgrown dimensions of our existence and executing a deliberate reduction, understanding that simplifying the architecture is the only way to genuinely elevate the outcome.
As we conclude this analysis of such a thought-provoking source, I want to leave you with one final question to consider. We have spent this time mapping these concepts onto the grand scale of human civilization. But the exact same principles apply to the micro level of individual systems.
Our own lives.
Exactly. If you were to initiate a dimensional reduction upgrade in your own life tomorrow, which specific dimension of complexity, which area of accumulated personal or professional technical debt would you choose to completely strip away first in order to reach your own higher vantage point?